Welcome to Soul Led Lifestyle Podcast with me, Adele McCoy, and my magical guests, giving you the strategy, tools, and activation you'll need to create your soul led life. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Soul Led Lifestyle Podcast with me, Adele McCoy. Today, I have the amazing Susan McKins. She is so inspiring, such an inspiration. She's been through so much and has ended up creating her own magical book because of her experiences and because she wants to help those on their spiritual path. You need to tune in. She's a mother of 2 amazing kids, lover of freedom and lifestyle. She doesn't take life too seriously. And she's just amazing. She's a new author on a mission to help as many people as possible to see that there is a different way to live. And you just need to tune in today. You know, like, I can't even express, like, it was just such an amazing podcast with her, and she's just got so many gems. So chill, relax, grab a drink, switch on, and I hope you enjoy this episode. See you on the other side. Hello, Susan. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
I'm excited too. You know, like, your story sounds amazing. But let's start by finding out a bit about you when you was growing up. What was life like as a child for you? Family life and stuff.
God, do you know, I had quite a comfortable childhood, although it wasn't always the easiest. So I went to a normal school to begin with, and then in primary 6 moved to a private school. Neither of my schools I fitted in. So, I mean, they weren't bad. I can't say I've got a story of being bullied or anything. I just didn't really fit.
Yeah.
My mum was ill when I was 9. She had a heart attack and recovered, thankfully. But yeah, it then made everything was a bit different. She obviously couldn't do things with us as much, and we kind of, we had a really good upbringing. I can't really say anything other than that. I just didn't really fit anywhere.
Yeah. So how long, like, down the line did you feel like this? Was this going into teenage, early adult?
Oh, yeah, the whole thing. I don't think I particularly realised it as such until I looked back on it. I knew at primary school I didn't really fit, and I think my mum saw that as well, and that's why she moved my school. And then high school, I was quite lucky in the sense there was 2 or 3 of us that had come from other primary schools and came in, so we got this little bond going, which was quite good. And then that we kind of just stuck really to our little group, and that was us. And then I did a year at college, which was fine. Again, I did that with a friend from outside school. And then I just went straight into work. And from working, just flourished and found my feet and kept growing from there, really.
Yeah, okay. So when would you say then, so you was working, just enjoying life as a young lady, I guess. When would you say life kind of pivoted for you to, walk upon your spiritual path? What was that all about? What happened?
So I think it probably stems back to when I lost my dad. So I was 31, 32, I think. My son was 1 at the time. And I can't say there was a pivotal moment at that, but I always feel like it goes back to that. I feel like when you experience a kind of loss, it's your mind then kind of opens up to different things that it maybe didn't before. But the actual process itself didn't start. In 2017, my kids would have been 1.5 and 4.5. And I just found I was really struggling as a mother. Not as a mother because I loved being a mother, which was weird because I was never maternal, so nobody ever saw me becoming a mum. Mm-hmm. So when I did, it was fantastic, but my husband worked offshore, so I did an awful lot of things on my own.
Yeah.
And I think in amongst all that, losing my dad because my husband worked offshore, when I actually looked into it and I had my crash and I spoke to people, we looked back and it was like I was running on adrenaline when all that happened, so I didn't probably process it how I should have processed it. I just kept running and running and running. So when I did eventually kind of hit that phase of not coping, and I'd asked my husband to come home from offshore, that was actually when I crashed. So I
Okay.
went to the doctors, spoke to them, got help, and it was the following year, as in the round about this time of year actually, I started to see all my trigger signs coming back, and I had the chat with my husband, and I was like, "This is happening again," and he was like, "We kind of," I suppose I thought I was fixed, if you like.
Yeah.
So when the signs came back, it actually hit me even harder the second time. But I was really determined. I'd been on medication the first time round, and I didn't really want to go down that road again, because I remember the numb feeling the medication had given me. And I thought, I don't want that again. And that was the point that I stumbled across the law of attraction. And that was my first introduction into spirituality. So the first thing I ever came across was Rhonda Byrne's book, The
Oh
Secret, which
yeah.
I'm sure most people have at
Yeah.
some point come across. And I listened to it on audio, and it was, to me, to begin with, it was really far-fetched, and I was a bit taking it with a pinch of salt, but I felt like it was a good basis to get the information that you need to start the process. But
Mhm.
I did feel like there was an awful lot of bits that was a wee bit too far out there for me.
Yeah.
So that was my introduction. And then I found Lucy Howman, who's a spiritual coach as well. Don't know if you've heard of her. And she always does an advent calendar every December. So it was perfect timing. It was right at the point when I kind of hit rock bottom. And I basically got up at 6 o'clock every morning throughout December and did whatever it was that she was telling us to do that day. And honestly, within, I would say, a week, my feelings of this is coming back had all lifted. It was
Oh
just
wow.
crazy. And I got this really mad excitement again. And I was so excited to be getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning
Mhm.
before the whole house, to be doing all the various things. You know, you've got your journaling, your
Yeah.
gratitude, your all this stuff I'd never ever come across before. And it
Uh-huh.
honestly totally lifted me, and it got me through that winter, and I didn't have to go and see a doctor, didn't have to take a tablet, and that was it. It just, and then once you start down what I call the rabbit hole, oh my goodness, there is so many tracks that you can follow, and it actually does get a little bit overwhelming, I think, to
It
begin with,
does.
because there's so many different, it's, do you go down the angels route, do you go down your higher self route, there's just
Yeah.
so much that I find it actually gets a little bit difficult.
How did you navigate your way there then? Like, how did
Well,
you? What was it?
I worked with coaches, so
Mhm.
we've all done lots of courses. We find courses here, there, and everywhere that we start. And then I worked. Did I work with? I think I worked with the Law of Attraction twins to begin with, um, Tish and Candice, and I worked with them for 6 months. Or did I do? I probably did a few of their courses first,
Mhm.
and I actually did my awakening with them, which was just amazing. And then I went on and did 6 months with Lucy Howman, and basically just between that, I feel like I found my path, I found my purpose. I wrote my book. It all came from these people giving me this belief in myself. And from going through my awakening, I've always been somebody that needed external validation. I could
Okay.
never make a decision on my own.
Mhm.
I always had to run my thought process past people for them to tell me if it was okay or not okay.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden it was like I didn't need to do that anymore. I was quite comfortable knowing myself and being able to connect inwardly with myself to do that. And it's been from working with these coaches. And I'm still in the rabbit hole, and I could still go a million different directions.
Yeah.
And you really
There's
do have
so
to
much.
rein
It's so
yourself in.
vast.
It's about trying to kind of rein yourself in, but I also feel like you do, the difficulty with it is a little bit, you pay for this course, you pay for that course, and there's a lot of money that has to go out, and I couldn't understand why you couldn't just find everything in one place.
Yeah.
And that was how my book came about, was because I wanted people to be able to touch on various different aspects of it, to then go, right, I really enjoyed this part, and then they can further themselves down that specific path if they like.
Mhm.
But again, it's very it's just, it's like, I like to think of it as spirituality for practical people, a bit like what you're doing just now, trying to give them the stepping stones if they're not quite there yet and they don't really know
Yeah.
much about it. It's
Mhm.
really, it's right at the inner steps of that.
Yeah. So when you was going through that whole like that spiritual journey, how was your family and your children? What were they thinking, you know?
Oh, it was so funny because both myself and my husband were very, very far from what I would say is spiritual. We were very practical people. We're very, what's the word for it? I can't think of the word for it, but we weren't big believers in any. I've always been quite a positive cup half full,
Uh-huh.
but I've always
Logical.
kind of felt no, like I'm going to say I kind of felt it was a bit like a cult type thing, and
Okay.
I had my opinions, and I was quite strong on my opinions. So for somebody like me to actually go down this way, I was just like, this is just crazy. And then I kept stupid things like to my husband. I'm like, oh, it's 11:11. He's like, oh God, what does that mean? And I'm like, just give thanks, be grateful for everything. And he's like, all right. And then he would send me pictures of numbers that come up like 222. And he was like, check what was on. And I'm like, oh, see, you're getting into this.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
little things, he quite comically will send me messages or this happened today. And I feel like whilst he's not following it the way I follow it, he
Yeah.
humours me and he supports me and he actually doesn't think I'm insane and he's seen the progression that it's made
Oh
and the
yeah.
difference it's made to my life and everything as well. So
Mhm.
yeah, there and my kids are a bit like, oh mum, will you stop with the universe? You know, they're kind of they like crystals, so they
Yeah.
both have their own little collection of crystals. And they do like it to an extent, but my older child, he's nearly turning 10, so he's just the eye roller of, oh God, here she goes again.
Yeah.
Whereas Holly, my younger one, she's quite, she entertains me.
Uh-huh. Yeah, there's something there. Mum's onto something here.
Yeah.
Don't quite get it, but I'll listen.
I actually feel like she's got quite a good connection somewhere. I
Yeah.
feel like some of the things that she says to me, I'm like, oh, you've got somebody there with you.
Uh-huh. You know, it's actually good that, you know, we can talk to our children like that from a young age so that they
Yeah,
don't get into their 30s and hear things like that and think that's just so weird. Why would they say there's someone with me? Or, you know,
yeah,
so by the time she gets into her 30s, she'll be like, yeah, you know, I have certain spiritual beings around me and I take comfort in that and I'm protected and I'm guided. And, you know, she'll be really
yeah,
in her mind set, knows what she wants and everything. And that's why I think it's really important to teach these things down to our children so that they're
yeah.
not scared as well, you know. They're
Mm-hmm.
not scared of the unknown. um
Exactly.
you know, so no, that sounds brilliant. um so then what? So you then had this transformation, you started diving into that world and doing courses and stuff, and then what was it, what happened next? What was it that
Well,
you
that was when the book came about. It was
Okay.
again working with the coaches, and I was doing notes for them for one of the courses they were doing,
Hmm.
and I quite like to doodle on my notes and make them colourful, and I just have little things. And they were like, "Have you ever thought about writing a journal?" Now, I failed my English higher twice. I hated school. I had learning support all the way throughout school, so writing is the bottom of the list of things that I should theoretically be doing.
Yeah.
But it just lit a fire inside me of, oh, I really want to do this. And
Hmm.
then my husband came home that night and I was so excited and so, you know, when you just know, it was one of those moments.
Hmm.
And I was like, this is what I'm thinking. Do you think I'm mad? And actually, he just looked at me and went, no, I don't. He was like, I think it sounds great. And
Oh,
I was like,
amazing.
okay. So then I went to start writing. And the first thing I did, I wanted to explain the law of attraction.
Hmm.
So the first thing I did was Google it.
Hmm.
And I wrote down the answer from Google. And then my husband came home and was like, right, listen to what I've got. And I read it and I just thought, that is not me.
Hmm.
There is no element of that is me. And I was like, nah, okay, don't listen to that. And I thought, right, shut Google, have nothing to do with it whatsoever, and
Hmm.
be guided completely by my higher self, which I call Charlie.
Hmm.
Um, and I then just wrote the entire thing with not looking at anything. I was just on my laptop typing away, come back, read it back over, do the tweaks, and I spent the whole of 2021 writing it. And again, I had a break in the middle of about 5 months because I spent last summer just as a family doing what we wanted to do, and we had a fantastic summer. And it was like I'd hit a block, and I thought, I don't know if I want to do this. I
Yeah.
had the fear because writing's not my thing. So I'm then putting out my grammatically incorrect version of the world, and what are people going to say, and I'm writing it really simply, so that's going to get judged. And then all of a sudden I thought, well, no, you're writing it simply because people need to see it simply. Like,
Yeah.
we're buying books that tell us loads of things, but they're so fluffed out that you don't understand what you're reading, because they've tried to put what could be in one chapter into an entire book, and then you just lose the whole
Yeah.
thing. So yeah, I had to kind of fight my demons for a little while in between, of just saying, no, you can do this. Like, even if I can help one person from the book being out there, then that's it. So yeah, I spent that whole year doing that, plunged all my money into getting it published. I've then spent this whole year getting the business set up, getting the website set up, and getting the book ready for publish. So it came out in August.
Oh,
And now I'm
amazing.
at that point. I'm like, okay, what happens next?
Uh-huh.
And yeah, I'm there. I'm in this
So,
kind of little period.
do you have a copy of the book with you now?
I do, yeah.
Have
So
let's
we've got,
have a look. Oh, beautiful. Time to shine.
can't keep
So
it
what's that? I
straight.
can't see it properly. So is that 52 pages? What's
52 practices, 52
practices?
uplifting practices to brighten your inner sparkle. A step-by-step journey of self-discovery and personal transformation. So
Amazing.
it's like 52 little bite-sized chunks
Yeah.
of practices. So there's journaling, there's gratitudes, there's meditation, there's breath work.
Oh,
Do you know,
nice.
it's just all the little steps for mental well-being, really.
Yeah. And do
And
you
then it touches later on signs and numerology and little bits, so that they can then decide, do they want to take that further by the
uh-huh.
end of the book.
Okay. Do you have a favorite part of the book that you can share with
I
us?
love to dream day journal. Well, actually, I've got a favorite chapter, which I think
Okay.
is pivotal to everybody in their life. And I think when you can get to this way of thinking, it's quite good. So it's near the end of the book. The penultimate step in this journey is to become aware of your ego and to let it go. Your ego is the side of you that cares what people think of you. It is your sense of self-importance, the side of you that wants to be congratulated or seen as successful, or popular, or pretty, or fun. Or it tells you that you aren't good enough, or you're stupid, or you're not worth talking to. It is the space between the conscious and unconscious in your mind. It is the constant negative thoughts you have daily. It's the quiet chatter in your head. A quote from Jim Carrey: if you listen to the ego, there will always be someone doing better than you. Every time these thoughts pop up, take yourself back into a state of here and now. Don't compare yourself to others. Don't give those thoughts energy. Remove yourself from them with the distraction of your surroundings. Your ego wants you to remain in your unconscious mind rather than connecting fully in conscious awareness. Yogi Bhajan: when ego is lost, limit is lost. You become infinite, kind, and beautiful. You have already experienced so much relating to letting go of ego throughout this journal, but possibly not realised that's what you were doing. By letting go of the past and speaking kindly to yourself, this has been a case of conscious over unconscious. Every time you make a decision, ask yourself if you are responding from your ego or from conscious awareness.
Beautiful.
I'll just
Absolutely
love it.
fantastic. Oh, so how can people find your book?
So it's on Amazon and it's on Waterstones online as well.
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll make sure I put the links to it in underneath the podcast session, so
Thank
people
you
can
so
just get there
much.
directly. Okay, so what would you like? What's next for you then? So I know you said you're a bit like, okay, what next? So what is next? Have you got any idea what you want to do for yourself?
No, I have to be perfectly honest now. It's like, right, do I want to take my spiritual journey further and find the next coach that's going to teach me the next set of connection or that side of it? Do I want to then go into professional speaking and uplifting people with the thoughts behind the book and promoting the book and just promoting self-care and self-awareness to people? If I can drive that forward, then it's going to benefit so many people as well. So do I go down that road. We're also looking into starting our own podcast as well. So
Uh-huh.
yeah, there's also adding to the website, there's going to be clothing and some stationery items to come as well. So
Oh,
that's going to
beautiful.
get added on too. But yeah, I want to, I'm really at that point that I haven't been on a course or something like that for a while with connecting spiritually. So I do
Uh-huh.
feel like I'm ready for the next step that way. But
Yeah.
again, it's that whole, my goodness, where do you go now? What
Yeah.
direction do you take now?
Yeah, definitely. It all sounds so amazing. Like everything you were saying, it's like, yeah, I can definitely see that. I think you could possibly do all of them. You know, you could. I
Okay.
think you could possibly do all of them, even simultaneously. You'll be surprised. You'll be very surprised. Um, um, so, what advice would you give to someone who may be stuck? You know, a bit like you were. You know,
Yeah,
feeling like, what's the point? Can't see
yeah.
any positive outlook on their life. Um, Maybe they're not spiritual. Maybe
Well,
they're
I wasn't.
intrigued. Yeah.
I absolutely wasn't.
Hmm.
And how I stumbled into this, it really was the law of attraction and learning about that. And
Would
that
you say
everything
that's
is
the first
energy.
place to go then?
Do you know, I always think The Secret is a good place to start. Again, I do feel like it is fluffed out a lot, but if you can just take little bits of it to give you your start, I
Yeah.
feel like it does give you a much better understanding of energy. I think energy in itself, if you can learn about energy, that's
Yeah.
the biggest thing. And understanding that you
Huge.
you have a vibration, and if you can get your vibration higher, and there's two lots of vibration, you've got stored vibration and transitional vibration. And if you can be working on letting go of stuff from the past to raise your vibration and doing stuff day to day that makes you feel better to raise your vibration, to get yourself on an energy wave that then keeps drawing like for like, the whole like attracts like. Do you know, when you start down a spiritual path as well, you start hearing all these sayings that you've heard your entire life, and all of a sudden you're like, my god, they're so true. Like,
Yeah.
they
Uh-huh.
just really are. They hold so much about what's for you won't go by you. Do you
Yeah.
know, all these things, they really do. So yeah, I think energy is big. If you can have a delve into energy and understanding energy, I think it gives you such a better understanding of what we can do. And again, everything in the book is all about raising your energy vibration. It's step by step ways that you can, again, gratitude. Even if you can lie in your bed at night time and think of one thing from that day that you're grateful for and focus on it, because we are really bad for focusing on the negative
Yeah.
and what a crap day we've had, instead of, well, it might have been a rubbish day, but you know what, this happened and that's really
Yeah.
good, and I've still got a roof over my head and hot water. I mean, given that where we are just now with energy companies, my god.
Let's
All
please
that kind of
all
thing.
be grateful. Let's all be grateful.
But yeah, I would say if you are just starting out, have an open mind. Be careful not to overwhelm yourself, because it can become really too much. So don't join a million different Facebook groups, because it will become too much. I would stick to one or two and focus on them. And again, I found at first, I maybe joined groups I wasn't ready for, and they would maybe take me back a step because I wasn't as far down my spiritual journey then, and it did take me too far. So again, find ones where they are just starting out, and it is that handheld journey, because each one then, each group you go in will introduce you to another person, to another person, to another person, and you
Mhm.
find every group you go in, you will start coming across the same names, and
Yeah.
we all cross over all over the place. And yeah, just don't overwhelm yourself. Learn about energy and just think about gratitude.
Yes. Oh, that's amazing. I'm sure for you, spiritual hygiene is important, like protecting your energy and stuff.
This
What?
is something I need to do, and I'm not as good at it.
Ah, because I was just gonna ask you, what three things would you tell the audience would be a great way of protecting your energy?
So, I don't know if you'll have heard of human design. So,
Yes.
I have been recently, this is the, actually, that could possibly be the next path I go down. I love everything to do with human design. And
What
I'm
are
quite a
you? I'm a
logical
6'2". What are
person.
you?
I'm a 4-6.
Okay.
So I'm a projector with an emotional authority. So I don't hold my own life source energy.
Uh-huh.
So I take on the energy of everybody around me. So if I'm in big groups, now I've always known this, but now I obviously understand it where I didn't before. I knew if I was with people a lot, I then needed time to myself to kind of come back down. But I didn't realize this was all part of my human design. So
Uh-huh.
now, when I know I'm going to be in big crowds of people, I have to protect my energy before I go in, which I didn't know before. So
Yeah.
I will maybe cleanse with a sage stick, I'll hold a smoky quartz, and I'll think something to do with protecting. So I'll sort of say, I'm going to protect my energy from those around me. I'm not going to let it affect me. And I'll use the smoky quartz crystal and I'll just kind of take it over myself. And then I know that when I come away from that, that I can then cleanse again and I can just go, right, I'm not going to let the energy around me affect me. And actually, when I do remember, this is my problem, I forget. And
Mm-hmm.
when I do remember it, I feel a huge difference from the energy shift that I would normally feel. So pre learning about that protection,
Yeah.
I would just be floored from anything that was really big and really eventful. I've got quite a big, my adrenaline goes really high and then I have quite big crashes. But since I've learned to do the protection side of it, it just really helps me not have that. And it's like I can now get through with just having an afternoon of
Mm-hmm.
time to myself and then I'm back up and running again. And so
Mm-hmm.
from learning that about my own design made a big difference.
Amazing. So you'd sage and um, basically say the words protects me from the energies I'm about to
Yeah.
encounter, and also use crystal.
Yeah, grounding crystals, hematite's a good grounding crystal as well. Red jasper, smoky quartz, any of those kind of ones.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, if I've had a hectic day, I like to meditate at night because,
Yeah.
again, I feel like it just brings you back to that calm state again.
Mm-hmm.
And meditation, I sometimes I'll do one of my own. Sometimes I'll just look on YouTube and look for a guided meditation and I will listen to whatever they're going to do. I did have a meditation app for about a year, which was quite good because they had a 30-day learn to meditate um, schedule. So you had one every day. And the
Mm-hmm.
biggest thing I picked up from that was I used to get really annoyed when I went to meditate if somebody made a noise because I felt like it had ruined my whole meditation.
Yeah.
And then when I was on this learning how to meditate, it said, don't worry about noises, allow the noises to be. And that was
Yeah.
massive. It was like, okay, I don't need to be annoyed now. If I hear a noise, I can just accept it for a noise. And that made a
Yeah.
big difference as well. So that was
Uh-huh.
quite big for
Yeah.
me. So
Literally,
yeah,
it's you got to let go of the noise, especially when you
yeah,
got
especially
kids.
when you're in a house with children.
Exactly. um, okay, another question for you. What is your favorite crystal and why?
This changes a lot. So my first ever crystal I was attracted to was amethyst. I've always my favorite color is purple, so I think it's to do with that. But also it's got good healing qualities and everything as well. When I first started on my spiritual journey, I was so drawn to labradorite, if that's
Mm-hmm.
how you say it properly.
Yes.
It was it just screamed at me and I just kept getting loads of it. I couldn't stop and I thought I obviously needed
Yeah.
some, it was obviously I was drawn to it for a reason. And I now have what I call a labradorite shrine of all the little bits that I've bought. And I don't feel that drawn to it anymore, but it's obviously
Yeah.
because I don't need
Need
as
it.
such
Yeah.
that, but I am drawn to anything with a rainbow. I'm a
Okay.
rainbow girl, so anything that's a bit sparkly. I like angel aura. Again, the first one I went into a crystal shop and chose was an angel aura crystal.
Uh-huh.
Um, so yeah, oh god, I could go on.
Uh-huh.
Citrine, I love citrine as well.
Yeah.
Carnelian,
Oh,
there's a lot.
there is a lot. There is a
What's
lot.
your favourite?
Mine is actually labradorite.
Oh, is
Yeah,
it? That's
yeah, it
funny.
is because it's so powerful. And
Yeah.
if I'm gonna do a session like a psychic circle or something, I'll always be holding I can never say it right. Sometimes labradorite. I'll always be holding it, and I also like crackle quartz as well,
Oh,
which is
see,
the
I've got
see-through
that for
one,
the
crackly
kids,
one.
which is one I'm
Yeah.
not so drawn to for some reason.
Yeah, I
That's
prefer it. I know it
funny.
sounds weird, but I prefer it more than clear quartz. It's almost like the
Oh,
two of them together I will hold, and it's like it gives me the clarity. And I
yeah.
think where it's
Well, they say that,
crackled,
don't
it's
they?
kind of
Quartz
like
is the
it's not perfect, but
and
it's
quartz is the
yeah,
amplifier, isn't it? It's the
yes,
amplifier of any crystal.
yes,
So
yeah, yeah. So I
oh,
do love
amazing.
those.
Ah,
um, it's been amazing talking to you. Really, I
I could just go on
like
and on. It's one of those things, isn't it? When you find you're talking to people that are spiritual, if you like, you could
yeah,
just go on and
literally.
on.
Literally, and there's every like subject you can go deep on as well, like
Yeah.
in every subject. Non-spiritual people is a bit like, okay, that's it, but you know, you want to go deep and they're like, what does that mean? It's, oh, forget it.
I know.
You know, so forget it, it's all right. But yeah, I love having conversations with spiritual people, which is why I had to do this podcast, because I felt
Yeah.
that there was a need for it. And I think, you know, so many people are intrigued but they're scared,
Yeah.
or you know, depending on where they've grown up, upbringing, they weren't allowed to delve into this world. And you know, and I just want to kind of open the curtains on that a bit and say, you know, it's not what you think it is. You know,
Yeah. Yeah,
um
absolutely.
yeah,
They do. They kind of feel like it's all like tie dye and smoke and mirrors
yeah,
and
yeah,
all of that. Like doing a what was it you used to do? People used to like the Ouija board. They think it's like
yes,
all that kind of thing, but it's
yeah.
so not. It's just about being in awareness. I think
It
would
is.
be
It is. And also, like with everything, even with some religions, there are good sides and bad sides, and people have certain gifts and they do use it for the wrong reasons and in the wrong way.
yeah,
But it doesn't, it's such a pity. It's for spirituality, it's that's kind of overshadowed everything. And I believe that when you are in your spiritual flow, everything comes to you as it's meant to
yeah.
come, the people, the
I agree.
scenarios, you know, opportunities. And so it's important for me to just share this share this word with the world, um, so that people can live their best soul led life, you know?
Yeah,
That's what it's about.
exactly.
But thank you so much, Susan.
Thank you for
Take
having me.
care.
I've enjoyed
Oh,
it.
I have as well. And I will put all of Susan's details down underneath the podcast. So if you want to get in contact with her, buy her amazing book, which I will be doing.
Thank
Because now
you.
you've read a smidgen of it, I'm like, oh, what else does it say? What else? What else is in there? You know. So yes, take care, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Until the next time. Goodbye.